Hey guys, it's Bales. I am at Fantasy Labs and wanted to introduce you to and show you how to use our latest tool, which is one of my favorites that we've ever built, which is a player prop tool. So the idea behind this is to show you every player prop available at various sports books, updating them in real time, our projections for those same players, the biggest differences, maybe the biggest inefficiencies, and then where you can potentially find the best bets on those props. So I'll just walk you through the basics here. In the top left, you can select the positions that you'd like to view. We're looking at the Jets-Bills game, which is a Thursday nighter, and there just aren't props currently available for the Sunday games, but when those become available, they will populate into the tool. You can select the sports books. Currently, we have 5 Dime Sportsbook, Bovada, BetOnline, and Heritage. So if you only want to bet at Bovada, for example, you can select just that book. The statistics you'd like to view, you can search for players, you can filter by team. So right now we only have the 2, but you can filter those. You can select to have updates on the top. So one of the big edges that we think we have at Fantasy Labs is we're putting all of this time into reacting to news in NBA, NFL, MLB, getting lineups in really quickly, reacting accurately to injuries, and we do that very, very quickly. And so a big potential edge is just betting things before the book changes them, because a lot of times they're not going to be putting the same effort into prop bets as they will into game spreads and totals, obviously, because of those bets have much higher limits. They have more incentive to make sure that those are accurate, and there is a time element edge into betting props. So you can see all of the latest updates, and this is really important when there's injuries or scratches or things like that. In basketball, a guy's out at 6:50 p.m. and really the stats for every player in the game and obviously on his team can change drastically, and so there's really big potential edge there. Same thing in NFL with injuries. And then there's 2 different views. So the one is the default view, which is basically every bet. So you can see LaShawn McCoy rushing yards at Heritage. You can see the same bet if it's at Bovada. Another way to look at it is the best bet view. So it's a lot of the same data, except we will show each potential bet only once and then have where it's the best and where it's the worst, more or less. So not a ton of props in yet, so you can see there's not a lot of conflicting bets yet. By tonight when the game kicks off, there will be. But as an example, Jordan Matthews receptions, you can see that Bovada has the odds at both Bovada and Sportsbook have the odds at the prop at the over under at 3, but at Bovada it's minus 105, and at this is to bet the over, and at Sportsbook it's minus 130 to bet the under. The other way around. So you can see that there's they have fairly substantially different odds there, and if you are betting at more than one place, then of course being able to capture that difference and make bets where you're getting the best lines is very important. So just walking through the grid here, you can see basic information. When there's big news on a player, we'll have it over here, of course, but we'll also have an icon in the news column, and then you can see the player's salary. So you can select the fantasy site on which you're playing if it's DFS, and see their salary. Then you can also see what we're calling Vegas points, which is more or less what the props for a player suggest he's going to score in fantasy. So if we know Austin Seferian-Jenkins implied receptions, his implied yardage, and his implied touchdowns, then we can use that to calculate his implied fantasy points on DraftKings, obviously. And then we can look at a plus minus. So at Fantasy Labs, we have a projected plus minus of basically how off we think the salaries are. And we can use the Vegas props to do the same thing for DFS players, where we can sort and look at, which guys have the most value in DFS. So I think that the tool is really useful in that way for both sports bettors and for DFS players who are just looking to, not betting, but looking to use the Vegas lines and player props to find big inefficiencies in DFS salaries. So you can see the best bets. Then we have a bet quality grade, which will be close to this difference column, which is the difference between where we have a player projected and what Vegas has. So you can see at Sportsbook, for example, Zay Jones projected at 21.5 yards. We have him at 35.5, so that's a fairly substantial difference, 68%. That's the largest difference in this particular game, and so he's going to have a really high bet grade if you're betting the over, and a really low bet grade in betting the under. And then finally, you can also look at the sportsbook average. So every book that has Zay Jones receiving yards, which is just one, but as more come in, you can look at the average, which is useful for DFS players, of course. So those are the basics here, and this is a tool, like I said, that I think is really useful if you're not betting for DFS players. There's no good source of all these different prop bets, certainly not updating in real time. And then if you are doing the work in fantasy to project players or using our projections and want to identify the biggest weaknesses in prop bets and have that updated in real time so that you can really take advantage of soft player props, which do exist, then you can use it for that reason as well.